Edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Podcast Network and on Patriots Press Pass. I'm Evan Lazar, joined as always by Alex Barth. Today, Throwback Thursday edition of the show here in the off season. We're going to do Patriots legend and 2022 Hall of Fame inductee Richard Seymour. That's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Last week we did Vince Wilfork, who's the Patriots Hall of Fame nominee. Hopefully he'll be in Canton someday too, and we can talk about that when that day comes. But today we're going to break down a Pro Football Hall of Famer here in a few minutes in Richard Seymour. But before we get to Seymour, I want to discuss some of the Patriots news that's trickled out over the last couple of days. Obviously not a ton going on in the Patriots world or the NFL world. Well, in some respects, the NFL world's quiet. In other respects, not so much there in Washington, D.C. in more ways than one. But in terms of the Patriots, pretty quiet couple of days here. Now, we did get a few things, though, that I want to discuss. Number one thing on my list, and I know Alex's number one thing on his list is different from my list, and we're going to get to both. The number one thing on my list, though, is that the Patriots have at least put pen to paper, haven't officially put it through the NFL and the NFL transaction wire, but they have put pen to paper with first-round pick Cole Strange and second-round pick Tyquan Thornton, Instagramming out a picture of him signing some piece of paper that obviously looks like an NFL contract. So sounds like the Patriots' top two draft picks, Cole Strange, Tyquan Thornton, pen to paper. Bailey Zappi remains the one Patriots draft pick unsigned. Now, this is a formality in today's NFL with the rookie wage scale. There's no holdouts. There's never any real arguments or negotiations going on for rookies. So no one's surprised that these two guys get under contract. The one, if you want to have a takeaway from it, Alex, is the cap ramifications, right? The Patriots eventually are going to have to move some money around. There's a multitude of ways that they could do so to free up the money to sign the rest of their draft picks. But I'm going to present a couple to you, Alex, and I want to know which ones you would prefer the Patriots to do and in which order. So I think the most realistic ones are contract restructures or converting base salary into signing bonus. The two most obvious candidates for that are Matthew Judon and Jalen Mills. Judon, I think it's because you figure he's going to be worth it throughout the rest of the contract. And that doesn't really seem like a big problem to escalate his cap hits in future years. Jalen Mills, really safe on the roster right now. Is their best corner on the team right now. So he's not going anywhere. So they could do a salary conversion with those two. They could extend your boy Jake Bailey and save some money in the immediate future, lower that $3.98 million cap hit that he has right now as the highest paid punter in the NFL by extending him beyond this season. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. The last domino that they could drop, and this won't happen now, this certainly will be maybe in a month from now, let's say, is trading somebody like Isaiah Wynn or Nelson Aguilar to clear the cap space that they're going to need to operate throughout the rest of the season. So those are not immediate fixes. Trading those two is not going to happen until the end of training camp. So the first two are more immediate fixes. Which one do you see happening? Which one would you prefer happening?
They'll probably just do the restructure. I would extend Jake Bailey at this point. He's a top 5 player in the league at his position. He's a player that's important to this team. He's a young player that you can have probably on a team-friendly contract if you approach it correctly. I just think that would make all the sense in the world. And they'll probably honestly end up doing more than one, right? But I see them going. I see them going with the restructure. But I would go with Bailey.
Yeah, so Bailey, it's an interesting one because last season, would you agree, Alex, a little bit of a down year for him compared to
he was hurt. Right? Yeah. He was hurt, so that was part of it. He looked really good in the spring. Yeah. They have a better grasp on that than we do, but when he's healthy, he's a top 3 punter in the league. So
that's where I was going with it. Yeah, where I was going with it is what we saw out there at minicamp, especially. His leg looked as strong as it did in 2020, right? I mean, just absolutely booming punts. We had Jake Julian. They had Jake Julian in there for a tryout UDFA signing for the Patriots. Some people, because of the contract, we talked about punters, Matt Ariza, Jordan Stout, right? Like we were talking about all these guys during the draft. The Patriots don't go in that direction. Bailey comes back in minicamp and is absolutely killing the football again. So my guess is that that one is coming. If they didn't see a long-term future with Jake Bailey, you would have thought that they would have dipped into one of the best punter classes that they've had in quite some time, with those two guys in Stout and Ariza being two of the best punting prospects probably since Bailey, right? I mean, it's been 3 or 4 years since there have been punter prospects that have been that good. So I'm with you on Jake Bailey. I'd love to see the team sign him to an extension, mainly to lower that cap number. He is the highest paid punter in the NFL due to an escalator in his contract when he made the All-Pro team and made his contract increase. And that's just sort of how the game works with All-Pro nominations and Pro Bowls. It kicks in an escalator through the CBA that makes him the highest paid punter, because punters, quite frankly, don't get paid much. So being at $4 million makes you the highest paid punter in the NFL. The one thing I'll say about the restructures, I do find it interesting that they've been so reluctant to, at least at this point, borrow money from the future, basically any chance that they can to avoid that. But they traded Shaq Mason to avoid it, right? They could have restructured all these guys already and kept Shaq Mason, but in order to keep the flexibility for future seasons, they decided to trade Shaq Mason and free up the money that way. When you look at that, look, this could all go by the wayside because they could convert Judon's salary, Mills' salary, and start borrowing more from the future. But really, the only move that they made that hurts the future cap is Devin McCourty's void years. Other than that, they're really all the moves that they've made this offseason in terms of the cap have really kept that flexibility for beyond this season. Do you think that that is a tea leaf that the Patriots might be loading up for another big run in free agency in 2023?
I think it's possible. We talked about this with last offseason when they signed all those big deals and the way they structured them, that the cap's going to spike here, next year. And then again, the year after that, there's going to be two massive spikes. So you could pay a lot of money and then still potentially have a lot of money on the table, in a year. This was the 1 year that was going to be kind of a little tight, and it's tight around the league. It's not just that they're an extreme example, but it's not just the Patriots that are up against it. Yeah, I think that is what they're doing. I think that they want to, take advantage of Mac Jones on the rookie contract, and you'd like to see him do it this year. I think maybe it wasn't realistic. Next year, it's going to go, I think, up and up and up. So I'd buy that, sure.
Yeah, you look at some of the comps in terms of building around a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback, and when exactly you hit the let's go button, right? Like when do you exactly buy all in on the quarterback and really surround him with a Super Bowl roster? I think the best example, unfortunately, is in Western New York with Buffalo, right? And the Stephon Diggs trade came in year 3 of Josh Allen, right? Year 1, he was okay. Year 2 started to show flashes of what he's become now. Year 3, they trade for Stephon Diggs and he's an MVP candidate, right? And that's sort of the developmental track that I think a lot of teams are trying to get their quarterbacks on. Justin Herbert and the Chargers went out and spent this offseason to surround Herbert. They signed J.C. Jackson on the defensive side of the ball to make their defense better. And they really are starting to load up for years 3, 4, and potentially 5 of Justin Herbert's rookie contract. And that, I think, is a similar place that the Patriots are going to be in. They're not going to quite have, at least projection-wise, the cap space that they had last offseason. But in terms of next offseason, they'll be one of the more cap-friendly teams, right? Like they'll have somewhere over $50 million in cap space next offseason. Clearly enough money to go out there and make at least one splash. I think the better offseason comp is probably the offseason where they signed Stephon Gilmore. Maybe not so much what they did last year, but they go out and they get one big ticket free agent with that cap space.
Yeah, and I would say maybe on the offense side of the ball, though we have talked about this in the past, and depending on extensions, this could change and all that. Next year's cornerback class is supposed to be loaded, loaded. So, you bring up Gilmore. That's probably not a bad name to bring up in that conversation.
Yeah, it'll be fun next offseason. I mean, not to skip ahead from this season, but the offseason's obviously got its own type of fun to it as well. Maybe arguably in my mind, a little bit more fun than the actual season itself sometimes.
But you still won't watch draft prospects. I'm texting you about players today. You still won't start watching.
That's true. Yeah. I just can't get my head into the 2023 draft until January. It's just it's a mental block for me. It's just not something that I can really wrap my head around. All right, let's go to your number one news item, Alex, as your hat shows right there. We were not on the air since the Patriots announced that Pat Patriot in the red throwback jerseys, which is perfect for our Throwback Thursday show to be talking about the red
Right.
throwback jerseys, are coming back next fall for the Patriots. Still no exact date announced or game announced for when exactly they will wear them. My guess is, I mean, well, they'll be on the road against Minnesota on Thanksgiving, so I don't know if that's going to be a factor, but they've worn them on the road before, especially on Thanksgiving, because that's like the one game that stands out in my head is that Thanksgiving game in Detroit, I think it was, where they wore.
Yeah, well, they did that twice.
Yeah.
They did it in 02 and then in, I think, 09, whatever.
I'm
Yeah.
sure my brain is remembering 09 more than 02. That I feel like, was that long-haired Brady? I feel like it was long-haired
In
Brady.
09,
Red
it was.
throwback. Yeah.
Or 9 or 10 or whatever. The reason I remember the 02 game, it's the first time in my life watching football I saw running back split out outside the numbers. They motioned Antoine Smith all the way to the outside. I thought it was the wildest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah. So the Pat Patriot logo, the helmets look absolute fire. I love the stripes down the middle of the helmet. I don't remember the old ones having those stripes down the middle.
So
maybe.
the ones they wore in 09 were a little different. There's like 5 or 6 different iterations of the white helmet, and there's different color face masks and everything.
Yeah.
The ones they wore in 09 remember the 50th anniversary of the AFL. So those were based on the uniform almost entirely. They actually used a different logo. And in 1960, they had a different logo. It was just like a hat. If you Google Tricorn logo. Anyway, those were based on the ones from 1960, the ones they wore in 2009. The ones they wore in 10, 11, and 12, and the ones they're bringing back now is more like the mid 80s to early 90s.
Got it.
Is what that one's based on. The shoulder stripes are a little different. There's the third stripe. You're thinking of just the 2 red stripes on the helmet. These ones have a blue in between the 2 red.
Yeah.
So that's like the stripe. 80s.
The blue stripe looks great.
I was kind of hoping they'd bring them back with the red face mask. I like the white too. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's fun. That's why I normally try to be like, objective journalist on the show. I wear my high school hat or just the generic logos, but I had to break this out today. I didn't do the jersey. I don't have my Steve Grogan jersey with me, unfortunately. If you're talking about like what games are they going to wear them, right? I look at the last two of the last 3 times in 10 and 12, they wore them against the Jets. So I feel like there's a possibility there. In the opener against the Ravens, like getting it going early, I could see that. I could see one of the holiday games, late in the season. I think week 6, whatever it is, against the Bengals. Yeah, week 16, Christmas Eve day against Cincinnati, red like Santa, like that would be awesome. Thursday night against the Bills feels like a possibility. The 2 so there's one I don't think they'll wear it, and it's going to bum people out, but it's just the reality. There's one that I don't want them to wear it, that I think they might. I don't think it's going to happen on Thanksgiving because the Vikings you can't wear red and have the other team wear purple. It's too close. And the Vikings haven't worn white at home since 1964. First time for everything. Like, could they go back and wear white? And maybe then, the Vikings are going to wear white for that game. Then you absolutely wear red. Throwback Thanksgiving. It's a timeless classic. I think that one would be tough, though. The other one, I hope they don't wear them against Detroit or against Chicago. Sorry. I know, like, it's prime time. It's Monday night, all of that, like a blue blood team. I know it, but it's just those uniforms against there's 2 teams I wouldn't wear them against, the Bears and the Packers, and they're on the road in Green Bay this year. But it's Super Bowl 20. It's what was for years and years and years the worst loss in franchise history. It was at the time the most lopsided loss in NFL history. You don't wear the throwbacks against the Chicago Bears. You just don't do it.
You don't want to exercise some demons?
No. That's one where, like, if they had brought back the 90s, then I'd be like, that's the game. Yeah. That's the game you do it. I don't think you can do it. Although I will say this, for the people who don't like the red uniforms because, they've never succeeded in them. Yeah. Since they became throwbacks, Patriots are 7-1 wearing red, 7-0 at home. And the loss is in Miami, which go figure. So
right. So the 2 games that I remember the most with the throwbacks are clearly the Lions game on Thanksgiving with long-haired Brady. That one stands out. They also wore them in that snow game against Tennessee, if I remember correctly.
So hang on. I can. So there's 2 Jets games, 10 and 12. I figured this out yesterday. I did this without even realizing. I know them all off the top of my head. There's the Jets games, 10 and 12.
Yeah.
There's It was 11 Thanksgiving against Detroit because Devin McCourty played in that game.
Yep.
They wore them in 09 so that's Jets. There's the Vikings, Randy Moss coming back on Halloween. Remember that game with Brett
Yes.
Favre?
Yes.
So 2 Jets, Vikings, the Lions on Thanksgiving. They wore them in 09 in the opener against Buffalo, Tom Brady or Tom Terrific game. There's the Tennessee snow game, 59-0.
Yeah.
And then in 02 against Detroit on Thanksgiving. Those are the 7 times they've worn red since they retired that uniform.
There you go. So
Evan, what's it like having a life? What's it like,
we got all the
out?
uniform facts right here from Alex Barth, but the 59-0 Tennessee game is, I still think, because Tennessee wasn't a complete joke that season. Like, they weren't a good team, but they weren't awful. So I think hands down that might be the best Pats blowout of the dynasty. Like, in terms, I understand that there might have been bigger games, bigger moments, right? But in terms of just pure absolute dominance, because they could have easily scored more than 59
right
in that game. They took the foot off the gas in the second half because it was like 49-0 at halftime or something like that, and they really let them off the hook. They could have gone for an 80 burger in that game if they wanted to.
Here's the thing you need to remember about that Titans team, and that game's actually very significant in Titans history too. They lost that game. The Titans did. They were 0-6 at that point. And then what happened was they had their bye week. Kerry Collins, I think it was Kerry Collins, right? Kerry Collins started that game. Yeah, Kerry Collins. They go into the bye. They come out of the bye after that loss with Vince Young under center, rookie Vince Young making his first start. And they finish 8-2. And I think they came up just short of the playoffs. They did. They came up just short of the playoffs at 8-8. But they had lost 6 in a row. They went to the break, and they came out of the bye with Vince Young, a completely different team.
Yeah.
So that's the legacy of that game. But that's one of my all-time favorite regular season Patriots games.
Yeah, so it was 45-0. I was wrong with 49. Yeah. 45-0 at halftime. Here's the box score. Lawrence Maroney, 45-yard touchdown right out of the gate, 7-0. Gostkowski field goal. Randy Moss, 40 yards. Randy Moss, 28 yards. Kevin Falk, 38 yards. Wes Welker, 30 yards. Wes Welker, 5 yards. Randy Moss, 9 yards again. And then Brian Hoyer ran for a touchdown late in the third quarter to make it 59-0. But
it did the Randy Moss touchdown celebration.
Yeah, it was 45-0 at halftime. So if the Patriots actually keep the foot on the gas in the second half, and obviously they didn't have to, right? But if they wanted to, we're talking about what, 75 points in an NFL game?
Brady could have he threw 5 touchdowns in a quarter in that game.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So he at one point he was on pace for 20 touchdowns.
Yeah, an unbelievably dominant performance. And I'll never forget the Patriots were just so much more well equipped and prepared for the snow that it looked like the Titans were moving in quicksand, right? Like it looked like they were moving in slow motion compared to the Patriots, because the Patriots were just so prepared to play in the snow. And it was blasphemous. That game was never close.
Well, it wasn't supposed to snow. It came out of nowhere. It was October.
Yeah. You talk about preparation, right? It's not just about practicing the snow. It's probably like a footwear thing too, right? Cleats and all that kind of stuff is important. And the Patriots are clearly ready for that. We're not doing Lawrence Maroney versus Sony Michel today. We're not doing that. I like the question for an off-season podcast, but
I looked back on real quick. I looked back on this a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Lawrence Maroney was not, we put him in the same category as like Aaron Dobson, I guess now N'Keal Harry, Chad Jackson, Razai Dowling. He wasn't quite that bad.
Yeah.
He had 2 good years and he got hurt.
Yeah. He was good on the 07 Patriots, right?
Yeah.
He was their primary running back in 07. And I want to say he had 1,000-yard season, didn't he? Or close to it.
Yeah, I think it was like 90 something.
I'll pull it up.
He had 2 decent years, got hurt, and then just never recovered.
Yeah,
like if you want to argue,
it was 745 in 06. And then in 09 or 07, excuse me, in the 07 Patriots, he had 835 yards, 12 touchdowns
in 13 games.
Yeah, 12 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons on the ground, almost 1,900 yards from scrimmage in his first 2 seasons. Then he had a pretty good year in 09 too, with the Patriots. Was hurt in 08, comes back in 09, has 757, 9 touchdowns, another couple almost 100 yards on the ground or through the air, excuse me. So no, not a him and Sony are not a horrible comp, because Sony wasn't terrible either, right? I mean, Sony was not what people were expecting him to be or what he was hyped up to be necessarily, but he had some productive years with the Patriots as well.
He wasn't bad. He just wasn't good.
Right.
Like, that's what you want from a first-round pick. Before we move on from the throwback uniforms, Evan, I know you're not a jersey guy, and I know you hate fun and all this. And by the way,
this is a little fun.
People in the chat can play along. Like, I don't want to say who's going to be the highest selling red jersey, because it's going to be Mac because he's the quarterback. But like, if you were going to buy one of the red jerseys, who are you getting? All things considered.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Like, if you were a jersey guy, if you liked fun.
I would say probably Matthew Judon at this point. I think he looked great in the jersey. I think a number 9 Judon red throwback jersey looks pretty sick. I guess I could be talked into some of the younger guys too, like a Duggar or Barmore or something like that. If you're a Ramondre guy, I think that one would be fun too. But I like Judon. He looked the best. You know, I was a picture I shared about the red jersey. He looked fire in those things. So I would go with that.
I thought Kendrick Bourne, and oddly enough, I asked a couple people this. There's a bunch of people who want the Matthew Slater red jersey.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that. The picture of Matthew Slater in the red, because he wore the red before, but you can't find pictures of it because he didn't play a ton back then. That's football right there. Matthew Slater in the red. So I'd go Bourne or Slater, maybe Jake Bailey, but anyway.
But look, Slater, you don't know how much longer he's going to play for. This could be it. We're on that clock now with Matthew Slater. Where
he stayed just so he could wear the red jerseys one more time.
It could be any year now, right? If Matthew Slater hangs it up at the end of the season, nobody would be surprised. So get your Matthew Slater jersey now. I don't mind that either. I think that would be cool too. Red throwback Matthew Slater. I'm good with that. All right, talking about Throwback Thursday. Let's turn back the clock, and I'm going to preface these video clips before we pull them up. This is the best that I could do for early 2000s TV broadcasts. So I'm just going to tell you now that some of the video quality on them is not HD 4K. Okay. So let's go easy on the fact that some of these are a little bit blurry. But I went back today, watched some of Richard Seymour's games, Super Bowl 36, refresh my memory of that game. Super Bowl 39 against the Eagles. He didn't play the first 2 games of the playoffs due to an injury. He was inactive in the first 2 rounds. Comes into the Super Bowl, has a sack, a couple tackles for loss. That he was dominant in that game as well. He's really, really good against the Rams, obviously, too. And you look at the Rams Super Bowl, you look at the Eagles Super Bowl, not to take away anything from Tom Brady and Deion Branch, because they had great games individually to win Super Bowl MVP. It's kind of like Edelman in Super Bowl 53. The defense really dominated those games, and I would have loved to have seen somebody on the defense side of the ball during this Patriots run win one of these Super Bowl MVPs. And Richard Seymour against the Rams or against the Eagles, I know that the Ty Law probably maybe gets it against the Rams if a defensive player gets it. Rodney Harrison had a fantastic game against the Eagles if that was the direction they were going to go in. But an absolute force in both of those big time games. So it wasn't just that he was good in the regular season. It wasn't just that he played his role and was fundamentally sound and did all the dirty work in the trenches and still made plays. Big time, big game player, like a sneaky good big game player. You look at the box score for Richard Seymour in Super Bowls, in AFC championship games that he participated in, Alex, a really, really good big game player Richard Seymour was.
And a guy who kind of redefined the position. I know we said that last week with Vince Wilfork, and how many position redefining defensive tackles can there be? There's not a lot, but they keep making their way to New England. So he's a guy that at that time, a guy with his skill set, you would expect to be an edge and or a defensive end. He played some defensive end, certainly. Yeah. He was a very versatile guy. He could move around, but his ability to, at that time, defensive tackles were just kind of space eaters. You didn't have these guys that made plays. I like to say, I don't want to say he's not necessarily better than Aaron Donald, but for a guy like Aaron Donald to be the player he is, Richard Seymour, I would point to Richard Seymour and John Randall, who was a Hall of Famer who played for the Minnesota Vikings. Those two guys are the reason Aaron Donald can be the player he is today. I would say Richard Seymour is, part of the reason Christian Barmore fits in the role he is. That role was kind of started late 90s. I don't want to say it's totally Seymour because Randall was a great player too. But, late 90s, John Randall, then into the early 2000s with Seymour. And that's the other cool thing about this. We couldn't do it as much last week with Vince because he's so unique. Like I would say, who is a better player? Probably Seymour. Who is more unique? It's Vince, and you don't debate that. It clearly was. But the cool thing we can do about this week is, and when I came up with this segment to do this Throwback Thursday, and we'll do this next week too. I don't know if we want to spoil who we're doing next week,
No,
but
I want to keep that one a secret.
Okay, maybe we can let people guess on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some clues that would make it tough. I think that we can relate some of what we're going to watch today with Seymour and what we're going to talk about today with Seymour to the current Patriots team and things they can do, specifically when it comes to Christian Barmore, not to put too much pressure on the kid, but Seymour was a different kind of player at the time. He was a unicorn at the time. He was a trendsetter.
Yeah, not to pick on people that were covering the team back then, because certainly you can pull up my receipts about my draft takes about the Patriots or any team in recent years and probably find some bad ones. But the overarching theme when the Patriots drafted Richard Seymour was that they drafted him way too early and they drafted the wrong guy. And there was other guys that people wanted at that spot, and it was a high draft pick.
Wasn't it David Terrell?
David Terrell, yes, yeah, and that was the first draft pick, right, of the Belichick era, right? The 2000 draft, first round, yes, I believe. Yes. So first Belichick draft pick, he comes in and he drafts a guy that everybody and Mel Kiper and everyone else thinks that he reached on 10, 15 picks or whatever. A classic Bill, right? Because nothing has changed. Yeah, we fast forward 22 years and it's still exactly the same.
And we don't learn anything.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Richard Seymour makes the Hall of Fame. Coming up on August 6th, he's going to be inducted into Canton and have the ceremony with the speech and the whole 9 yards in Canton on August 6th. So I think that the one thing that really stood out to him, just trying to get into his game a little bit now, you mentioned the tweener aspect of his game. He's not really a true prototype defensive tackle, but he's also not really a true prototype defensive end. And that's where a lot of people had reservations with him going into the draft. It's like, what is he, right? He's a tweener. You know, how is he going to be used? Is he a better 4-3 end? Is he a better 3-4 end? Is he a better nose tackle? And Bill Belichick mentioned this when he made the Hall of Fame. I don't know if it was the Patriots Hall of Fame or the Pro Football Hall of Fame with Belichick talking about this, that when he came into the Patriots at Georgia, he was a nose tackle, like a Vince Wilfork, true zero nose tackle. And then the Patriots made him a more versatile player. Now, a lot of the clips that we're going to pull up are him playing inside, basically from guard to guard. There weren't a ton of instances that I saw of him making true plays as a outside the shade of tackle, like a 7 or a 9. Going all the way out there. But he certainly could play 0 through 5, which is a ton of versatility to do that. And he was an absolute game wrecker. And it was a really difficult assignment because he had length. He had really, really strong hands and nuanced hand usage. He had quick snap recognition and get off. He had the whole package. And we can get into the plays now. And
real quick, Pat signed Zappy. So just while you have a minute there, Pat signed Zappy, so they're done signing draft picks. There you go.
Oh, there you go. All right. So all the draft picks are in for the Patriots. So this is Richard Seymour's sack against the Rams in Super Bowl 36 and Kurt Warner, the greatest show on turf. So he's right here. I hope that people can see this a little bit better than last time with the red cursor instead of the black cursor. So again, you look at him basically head up over the right guard, but he played this 3 technique role a lot for the Patriots. And the one thing that I thought was interesting about this play is that they actually have 4 down defensive linemen with their hand in the dirt. I believe this is Frable here, and that's Willie on the backside end over here. And then you have Richard Seymour in the 3 technique, and he's just going to club the guard. The guard's going to try to beat him to the spot and then throw a punch. And watch the upper body power here again, right over the right guard to just use that club move and just push the guard right out of the way. I mean, he puts him right on the ground, right? And then he goes and gets Kurt Warner. We can show it again here and just watch as the guard steps to try to make first contact. He actually gets on Richard Seymour probably before Seymour can get his hands on him, but it's the counter, right? That counter club is just absolutely vicious. And just knocks him right out of the way. And we can watch it. I think there's an end zone angle. Back then, the end zone angles weren't great, but there is a little bit of an end zone angle here, very far too in tight. But you can see those hands from the guard try to get inside
on the right
of him.
side there.
Yeah, on the right side of the screen, 93. And then you can see that outside hand just club him to the ground. And he just tosses an offensive lineman like a rag doll to the ground. And this was back when Alex offensive linemen were not Cole Strange, right? Like these guys were like 330, 340. Like these are big boys on the offensive line back then. It wasn't so much about athleticism as it was about just having pure power, especially at the guard position. But those hands were vicious. Those were two cinder blocks, and he hunts the quarterback here, almost gets Kurt Warner in a fumble, but brings him down for the sack.
Well, this is where you get to the mismatch thing, right? Interior linemen at this point, they're just trying to block Ted Washington, Sam Adams, right? Those kind of guys. So, you're on the inside there. You're not expecting to have to block like a combo move like that from the inside from a guy like Richard Seymour. So,
yeah,
offensive linemen had changed, interior offensive linemen specifically had to change their entire game plan when they're going against him. And you just see that. It's not, I mean, the technique is great and all of that, but whoever that is, 62, I knew all the players last week from the Ravens. He's totally unprepared. He's totally outmatched. That's two completely different things that are good. Those two players are reading two completely different books on that play.
Yeah.
Show it one more time. Like, look at 1, 2. Look at how he's trying to set. He's just trying to drive him to the outside. He's not expecting. Watch right about, and it kind of cut around it. He's just trying to wall off Seymour, and that's it. The way he's playing Seymour here, he's not respecting Seymour at all to cut that thing back to the inside or for Seymour to change direction at all. So when Seymour sets even a little bit back towards I think it's towards the outside here, he's toast. He's totally off balance. The offensive lineman's totally off balance.
Yeah, I just love the hand power in the usage, and you can see his eyes. Like, see how his eyes are on the quarterback there and on the mesh point to make sure that this doesn't end up being a handoff. Because if he gives this ball to Marshall Faulk, then Seymour is just going to park in the gap and two gap it, right? So he's looking into the backfield to make sure. And I think this is one of those things. Also, he gets the sack here, but we talk about gap integrity and maintaining the line of scrimmage so much with the Patriots. This isn't a true pin your ears back rep here by Richard Seymour, right? This is like a little bit of hesitation there just to confirm with his eyes that this is not going to Marshall Faulk and this is going to be a throw. And he just comes in and still gets the sack. But that club move, that outside left hand of Richard Seymour to just toss a 330-pound guard like he's a rag doll to the side was just a terrific play. And that was a big sack in the game in the third quarter. Rams were starting to come back a little bit, and Richard Seymour ended the drive there. So this is a big play that gets unnoticed because of what happens next, right? The tuck rule and all that kind of stuff kind of puts this play a little bit out of the purview. But I remember reading something by Scott Pioli. I think it was when Richard Seymour was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Pioli talked about this play as basically encapsulating what Richard Seymour was and how he consistently did the dirty work. So he's going to be right here in the inside over the center, basically in the A gap on 3rd and 1. So you're talking about an obvious run situation. Like, you don't pass on 3rd and 1 in 2002, right? Like, this is a run play through and through. And Richard Seymour is your nose tackle. That really shows you not only the versatility, but how much they trusted him to be in the middle of everything, and just that power at his size. I mean, he's not Vince Wilfork like we did last week. He's not 340 pounds, right? He's a 305, 310 pound end, and they have him over the nose here, and he's just going to shoot the gap. I think I saw in some Football Life or something about this game. Maybe it was the Tuck Rule documentary on ESPN, that there was a miscommunication between the Raiders offensive line in this play, and they end up not blocking Seymour.
Isn't that the 4th down? Because they go for it after this, right?
I think it was this play, but maybe you could be right. Here comes the fullback, though. This is what basically makes this play. Seymour is going to come through right here over the nose, and he's going to come through basically unblocked, and he's just going to blow up the fullback and basically stop this entire play from happening. If you look in the box score, he doesn't actually get credited for the tackle, right? The tackle goes to somebody else, but he's the one that absolutely wrecks the entire play. And we can roll it now and watch him just take out the fullback here. And that's what stops the play, right? I mean, he doesn't get credit for this. His teammates that make the stop behind him, I think that's I can't even tell.
It's I'll tell you, and you're right. This is the play where it's Teddy Bruschi comes in. This is the play where they get the wrong call
It
up
looks like
front.
Bruschi. Yeah. So it looks like the offensive line maybe blows an assignment here, and it allows Seymour to just shoot right through. And then he just goes low on the fullback and takes out the lead blocker and makes sure that this run doesn't go anywhere. These are the types of plays, though, that okay, he doesn't get credited for the tackle for loss. It's not in the box score that it's Richard Seymour that made this play. You got to watch the tape to know about these little plays, right? And granted, Scott Pioli gave me a shortcut and did it for me. But it just in general, when you talk about Hall of Fame and Hall of Fame voters, I think one of the best parts about Richard Seymour getting into the Hall of Fame is that it's clear that the voters bought the tape thing, right? Like you can't just chalk Richard Seymour's career up to his total sacks or his total tackles for loss, because he made so many of these little plays that don't show up in the box score, and that's why he's in Canton. And I'm glad the voters finally recognize that and were able to put that in context.
Do you have this from the end zone angle? This one looks really cool from the end zone angle.
I don't think so. I think I only pulled it.
I can pull that up because I know exactly where it is in the Patriots Super Bowl DVD.
Of course you do.
There's a great shot of Teddy Bruschi flipping head over heels.
Yeah, so it's just it's just one of those plays again. It's just doing the dirty work, and no one's going to know that this play was made if you just read the box score the day after the game. But if you watch the game,
look at it, because Ty Law got credited with an assisted tackle. You say Ty Law came all the way in on fourth down and made that play. Wow.
Yeah, no, Richard Seymour made the play, and the rest of the guys were luckily there to make the stop around him. But this was just one of those patented Seymour plays. We'll keep going if you find.
Wait, hang on. I found it.
Right,
One second. I want to make sure I share the right thing here. You see that?
I do. Here, I think I need to do this. There we go.
All right. So, yeah. So he's right. This is him, right? Right here?
Yeah, on the left side of center.
In front of Brian Cox.
Yeah.
So, yeah. See, he gets right in there. You see the setup. There's this guy's blocking out. This guy takes Brian Cox, takes out the fullback. And now look at this. You got Brian Cox right here. You got Ted Johnson right here. You got Ty Law right here. Nobody to block him in this hole. I think Teddy Bruschi's probably at the bottom of that thing. Give it one more.
Yeah, you can probably see Teddy come in on that other, because Teddy used to stand up at times like in line, right? Like kind of like how they used to use Dante Hightower, because he played a defensive end and edge in college, so he was pretty comfortable with doing that.
I think he's like right over here on the left.
Yeah, so in some of these situations, that's what they had him doing.
But yeah.
So. There's Alex, of course, knows exactly where that is in the Super Bowl DVD, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
How many times have you watched the 36 Super Bowl DVD?
Oh, it's got to be triple digits. That was like when I was a kid, like every long car trip, and by long car trip I mean like over an hour. But we had the bought the DVD player you could put in the car that plugged into the phone charger, right?
I know.
Yeah. Totally. That was the only thing I wanted to watch.
All right, so now we're going to Super Bowl 39. And again, I remembered Rodney Harrison being dominant in this game. Obviously, everybody remembers Deion Branch, Mike Vrabel catching a touchdown pass. Like, those are the big things. I watched this game back on just from the defense copy. Alex, Richard Seymour was a absolute force in this game. He was a big problem in this game for Philadelphia. So he's right here. Got a nice little zoomed in angle here. And he's just going to go one-on-one with the guard and watch the flexibility, the rip move to get underneath the pads and just rip through. And you mentioned this earlier on the sack by Seymour against Kurt Warner in Super Bowl 36. The mismatch against the guard is just so abundantly clear. Like, guards had such a handful with blocking him. And you see that again when he gets to about here. He kind of knifes his way into the gap. And you see him get underneath and rip that arm through underneath. And then you can see him kind of get underneath and bend the corner here and get to McNabb. Another key third down, third quarter type sack for Richard Seymour. And actually the whole Patriots defense kind of converges on him eventually. But this is a Seymour sack. But again, you kind of see that flexibility, the size, but also the power and that ability to just go right through the punch of the guard as a 310-pound defensive end. That's a special play too from Richard Seymour.
Yeah, if you can stop it like right when he gets to the 40-yard line, like right when he breaks the block right there, look where, or like go like another second. Look where his head is. He's looking for McNabb to cock the ball back.
Yeah.
He gets around the corner. There's a million things happening here. And in that 1 second, what's his first instinct? Go for the ball. That's textbook Patriot, old school Patriots, Bill Belichick, all of it. That's what separates the great players from Hall of Famers. And honestly, you talk about the whole defense getting there. And again, you see he even tries to go for the ball there. McNabb kind of makes a nice play to tuck it back in real quick. Go back to the beginning real quick, because I'm not sure we're going to get to him on this series. And I would like to, maybe next year. But you mentioned the whole defense gets there. Let's watch Willie McGinnis real quick here.
Yeah, top of the screen.
Since we have him, because he makes a nice play. Top of the screen. They'll all tell you that they were all good because of each other. So let's give Willie a little shine here. And you're not gonna block Willie McGinnis with a tight end.
Yeah.
They really try to block. They deserve this sack.
Yeah.
Trying to block Willie McGinnis with a tight end. Get out of here with that. Just bullies them all the way back.
It's
gets them right off balance on that first pop.
Yeah. It's max protect. And they still get like 3 guys into the quarterback.
Well, how many guys did they bring here?
Well, this is like kind of like an old Patriots amoeba front, right? Because that's
right.
Vrabel here. This is, turning back the clock on our Throwback Thursday. You see this on Sundays now, right? The Patriots will put all these guys up at the line. Who's
7
coming?
Guys right there.
Who's dropping?
This is on. I think this is like 3rd and long, right?
Yeah, I think this is Vrabel right here. He ends up dropping off the line of scrimmage into coverage. Bruschi ends up coming, but then watch once they're engaged. You see how Bruschi here, once he gets engaged by this blocker, now he's trying to get his hands up in the passing lane, right? He knows he's not going to get there, but basically what this front does is it's a 5-man rush, right? So it's not a true blitz, but it's sort of a blitz type of package, or I guess you could call it a 6-man rush. But the key is it gets the one-on-ones, right? Like they get one-on-one Seymour versus the guard, one-on-one Willie versus the tight end. Those are just winnable matchups. And you have an interior matchup there as well, where there's another one-on-one. So the Patriots.
Jarvis Green gets in there.
Yeah, I think it's Jarvis Green.
Playing the nose here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So they rush 5, rush 6, whatever you want to call it, in this like amoeba style look. And they just get one-on-ones across the board. And basically every single guy wins that gets the one-on-one. And that was just this defense at its best. The pass rush, just anybody that got a one-on-one on this rep wins. And that's something else. But Seymour's the one that gets there first, obviously.
Somebody asked who the tight end is. I'll pull that up real quick. I don't think it's LJ Smith. I want to say he was 81. It was LJ Smith, 82. That's 82, right?
Yeah, LJ Smith.
Okay, it was LJ Smith. Like he gets absolutely hosed there.
Yeah, but you also look at Willie at the top of the screen. We talk about, gap integrity, pocket integrity. Yeah. Watch how he doesn't get caught past the quarterback, right? Nope. Like he doesn't.
Right there.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Puts his foot in the ground and starts cutting back upfield.
Yeah, he knows at this point that he's too far, right? Like he knows that he's too far back the quarterback. And I'm sure you can hear Bill Belichick in his mind, like yelling at him in film study, like, why you pass the quarterback, right? So he puts his foot in the ground and gets immediately and climbs back up the pocket. Because if he doesn't stay there and kind of set this edge, then maybe McNabb can escape Seymour, right? By just running to his right. But Willie does a great job. And I think is that Roman Pfeiffer taking on the fullback there. Looks like 95.
No, Roman Pfeiffer's on the bottom of the screen. Oh, no, 59's Colvin. 95 is Pfeiffer. You're right.
Yeah.
Colvin's on the bottom there. Colvin kind of, he does that Bruschi thing where he kind of pops out and looks to take away a passing lane.
Right. So both of these guys really, Pfeiffer and Willie on the arm side, do a great job of keeping the pocket closed and not allowing Donovan McNabb to run away from it. But the one-on-one, again, Seymour there at the bottom of the screen against the guard with the rip move, just goes right through him, gets the sack, another 3rd down play. So this is a 1st down run play now. And we talked about some of the power. We talked about some of the recognition. Here he's just going to shoot the gap again. And we talk about the get off, the quickness off the snap and the ability to time the snap. So he's here on the back side of this play, or front side, excuse me, right here over the tackle. They're going to run like a zone style concept. We talked about outside zone a lot in the last couple of weeks, stepping out to the right. And they're going to try to get the tackle to reach Richard Seymour, who's playing end in the inside here, right over the tackle, and he's going to try to reach him and turn him out, and it's just not going to happen. I mean, you can't try to reach Richard Seymour, and he just goes right through the gap and makes the play. I think this one we might have the end zone angle. Oh no, we don't.
No.
Here, you see it again. So you see the tackle at left tackle, 72 there. He's trying to reach Richard Seymour on this zone style block, and there's just no chance that he's going to get to him. With that get off, with that speed, you see him just his ability right there to shoot the gap. And then you also talk about, I think that's Willie again on LJ Smith. Look at the edge set. That's a key to this play as well, because if Willie doesn't set the edge, then Westbrook might be able to bounce this, right? Like he might be able to bounce this to the corner. But because he got this really good edge set here from Willie McGinnis, this is like textbook. This is probably on the teach tape for the Patriots when they talk to Josh Uche and Matt Judon and Anthony Jennings about how they want them to set the edge. This is how you set the edge, right? That's how it's done. And Richard Seymour gets the penetration on the inside. McGinnis sets the edge, makes sure that the back can't bounce it, and then Seymour gets the tackle for loss. Like that's just such textbook defense. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
And even watch Colvin on the backside. Look how disciplined he is. He doesn't over pursue this here. If Westbrook's going to cut back the other way, Roosevelt Colvin's going to get him for a 2-yard loss. Just excellent. Poor LJ Smith in that game.
Yeah, LJ Smith got whooped. But
I would say, just real quick, the other thing too, you talked about the get off. That's something we talked about last week with Vince, and that's part of the reason I think it's fun to do a series like this. You think about some of the other guys who have had success here. That's clearly, every NFL team obviously values get off, but it's important. But that's something it seems like throughout history, or under Belichick at least, the Patriots value incredibly highly when they scout defensive linemen. How quick do you get off the ball? You look at the guys they brought in recently. Christian Barmore, excellent get off. Ronnie Perkins, that's the one thing when you go and you watch his tape at Oklahoma, how fast he gets off the ball and into his initial move. That to me, when Perkins was coming out, that was his best trait. I thought Jennings was a good get-off guy at Alabama. You go back a couple other years, Dietrich Wise was a guy who really had success with that at Arkansas. Right. So when we go through and we do the draft next year, this is something where, let's remember this. Who are some of the best get-off guys in the class? Who are the guys that just, when the ball is snapped, are already half a foot into the backfield? Because that seemed, the Patriots, it seems to be something that they value exceptionally more highly than most. There's no team that's looking at this and saying, we don't care that he has a bad get off, but some teams might value, well, once he gets off, what's his initial move? Some teams might care more about the initial move. Some teams might care more about just raw athleticism. Some teams might care more about versatility or this or that. Every team prioritizes things differently. It really feels like that get off is something that the Patriots have very high on that list when they look at guys who are going to play hand down on defense. Yeah,
it's a great point. And again, this is one of those plays where I just can't stress enough how great of an edge set this is from Willie McGinnis. Like this is exactly how it's done. And it allows Seymour's penetration to matter, right? Because if you blow that edge, they got the blocks here, right? Like the slot is getting blocked here by the slot receiver. Like they got some bodies man on man here.
You've got a tackle kind of leaking out there in the second level.
Yeah. So if they allow this to bounce around the corner, then this is going to hit, right? This is going to be a good play for the Eagles.
And this is
Willie doesn't let it happen.
This is something they struggled with at times last year, was exactly what you just described. Barmore would get that initial penetration. It's blocked at the second level, and the running back would be able to bounce it to the outside. They're kind of missing what Willie McGinnis gives them on this play. And that's, when we talk about Ronnie Perkins, when we talk about Josh Uche, when we talk about Anthony Jennings as we get into camp, this is exactly the play we're looking for them to make. This is exactly what, this team is looking for. The Richard Seymour in that situation, I'm not saying Christian Barmore is Richard Seymour, but they have the guy who can make that play. Now it's who can contain the back and make, like you said, make that penetration matter.
All right, so here's the last one that I pulled. The lone career touchdown by Richard Seymour. Not exactly the sexiest play by him, but he does beat his guy. Teddy Bruschi just gets to the quarterback before he does, and he picks it up and scoops and scores. I definitely remember watching this play live. Like this one definitely stood out to me. I had to throw it in there. He's right over here, basically now playing like that 5 technique straight up over the tackle defensive end. Brewski's over here. He's going to get through as well. He's going to shoot this gap and blitz up the middle and get through. But you're going to see, I can't remember if it's the tackle or, you see the tackle there try to step and kind of turn Seymour at this point, and watch the arm over move. Just boop, right by him, right over him, and just makes the guy eat dirt, right? Like he just falls on his flat on his face. Now, like I said, Brewski comes in on block.
Yeah, what's going on there? Where the hell is that guard going?
Yeah, clearly a miscommunication of some sort, or cross signals about where exactly the guard is supposed to be going on this play. And you can tell, I think that's your boy Drew Bledsoe, Alex.
It is. I figured that's why you put it in here.
Yeah.
Getting no help. Again, where is the guard going? Does he think he's eligible?
Drew doesn't know what's going on. Like he's looking around.
Drew knows what's going on. No, it's a counter. The guard thinks it's a run the other way, or it's a play. It's a not a counter. It's a play action counter. The guard thinks it's the other way.
It kind of looks to me, I don't know. I'm not saying that Drew did anything wrong. I'm just saying it kind of looks to me like this whole play was broken, and Drew was kind of like,
well, when one of your offensive linemen,
going on here, guys?
When one of your offensive linemen just takes off for the sideline at the snap of the ball, the play is going to be pretty broken, regardless of who you have. This is 11 on 10 right here. Look at him. He just leaves. He doesn't chip. He doesn't try to help on. I think that's Ty Warren
picks it up, and there we go to the house.
Yeah.
Touchdown, your boy.
Away from Rodney.
Fumbling.
Look at Travis Henry get up the field. He could play back in the day a little bit.
A fumble 6 by Alex's favorite Patriot of all time.
Yeah, and I hate that guard. Here's why this stands out to Seymour, though. Keep running this. He's got a long way to go. He's got, 60, 70 yards?
60 yards, yeah.
Normally, you'd think that in that span, right? Remember DK Metcalf last year on Budda Baker? Yeah. He's got wide receivers that are giving up on catching him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's faster than those wide receivers, but
yeah. I just love when each tackle tries to just get him right away and come out and punch him. He just goes face first.
This is not. I miss these Buffalo Bills. I really do. Oh, look at what is the offensive line? Look at it. Wait, hang on. Go back real quick. Go back to me. Like right there. Play it. I'll tell you when to stop it. Play it. Stop it. Stop it right there. Look at 73 and whoever this other lineman is in the middle, just standing next to each other with 4 Patriots behind them. If you keep running it, they kind of look at each other, right there. And if you keep playing it, they kind of look at each other like, what the hell just happened? They've got 4 Patriots behind them. They have no idea. No clue. I miss those. Those are my Buffalo Bills forever.
Those are your Buffalo Bills because they're quarterbacked by Drew Bledsoe. So they're really
a Pro Bowl quarterback. I don't know. I don't remember if this was 03 or 04, but he was a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I think it was 03, if I remember correctly.
Look at Rodney.
Oh, yeah. Rodney with the touchdown. Ty Law's down there. This was just a lot of fun to do because these fronts, it wasn't just the athletes. It wasn't just the playmakers. They were so damn sound. Like, they just didn't make mistakes. Like, they were just, this is just also textbook. Like, you see, like, the party at the quarterback, the edge setting, the backside containing, like, the everybody's on the ball, right? Like, he's got 3 guys around the football. I mean, this was just such textbook football. You can put this stuff up and it carries, right? Like, it's still it holds up is the word I'm looking for.
Timeless fundamentals. And I'll give you another one here, and this is something that's probably on the teach tape. Watch Richard Seymour pick up the ball here. He slows down and he makes sure he has it. And this is I know a coaching point from them. Fall on the ball. Don't miss recovering the fumble to try to return it. He really slows down, makes sure he picks it up. Even if he doesn't house it, so what? You get the ball back. The most important thing is the ball. They'll coach some guys just fall on it. And I think he knows he has Brewski right there, that if he kind of misses it, he has somebody else. But he is focused on he's not thinking about the touchdown until the ball is in his hands. The only thing in his mind when he gets back to the quarterback there and whoever it is, it's probably Brewski, right? Yelling ball, ball, ball. Yeah. The only thing in his mind is picking that football up. He's not concerned with the return at all until he has the ball secured.
And how about Teddy Brewski sacks it, gets the ball out, and then watch him take out 68.
He's going to set a nice block here. That's an illegal block now, I think, right?
It is.
Blocking back towards the goal line?
It probably is. I don't know, because he kind of gets him with his side, right? Like he doesn't, his whole body, the momentum isn't completely going back towards the quarterback. But back then, that wasn't a penalty. It just
Oh no, back then
the awareness and the effort to throw this block is just something else. I mean, you can just
it's also, you know,
perfect.
we make the
Perfect
jokes about, you know, the little things. Like I got, you know, people were mad at me on Tuesday when I was talking about, well, which receiver will they? Oh, let's go, Bill. Let's go, Bill.
He's pumped.
Jarvis Green with them. You know, somebody was saying something to me the other day, like, oh, why do you care so much about the comp picks? And sometimes we get into little stuff like that. Every single little thing, they're 5, 6, 7 steps ahead of the other team on every single play. That Brewski block, right? You talk about kind of, you know, on the earlier one where Brewski and Colvin know they're not going to get to the quarterback, but they've taken their lineman out of the play, so they fade back to try to eat up passing lanes. That's just such high level stuff. And like, to us, I guess some of us, we think it's, you know, if you're covering the Patriots your whole life and it's the only team you follow closely, you think that's just how the game is played. Buffalo has a guard running the wrong way, just completely leaving the play. Like it's two separate things. When we talk about the early 2000s Patriots and you know, even that 14 team, it's just the details, man. The details are done at such a high, no team I think ever hit the details of the game. And when you're that good, you can focus on things like, well, how are we going to block when the defensive tackle picks up a fumble, right?
Yeah.
When you don't need when you're just a fundamentally sound team in general and you have a bunch of smart football players, you have more time to kind of think outside the box like that and really work on the edges of your game. And that's what those teams were.
I just love that it's 20 years later and this stuff still holds up. Like it's like an old movie that's still good. It's like Goodfellas, right? Like it's still good even all this time later. And I think that in a world where, in a football community, in a world where we talk so much about innovation and RPOs and outside zone systems and like all this new age crap that's going on and tight fronts and quarter zones and like it feels like everybody's trying to change, right? Like everybody's like, you know, I know you always make fun of me, like running backs don't matter, right? Like in that whole thing, like it just always feels constantly like everybody's trying to change the game of football. And then you throw on early 2000s Patriots defense. And if you just play defense at like that now, and granted, it's very difficult to play at that kind of level, but just in terms of the fundamentals and the techniques and the awareness and the effort, that's going to hold up, man. Like you put that 2001 through 2004 defense on the field this season, and they're the best defense in the NFL again, right? Like it's that it just is timeless, and it's a breath of fresh air because I think even I get susceptible to this as well. You get you're lost in the weeds of like trying to be this new thing, right? And trying to reinvent the wheel. But at the end of the day, it all holds up. Like football is still football, and setting the edge is still setting the edge. And the 3 technique beating the guard one-on-one is still the 3 technique beating the guard one-on-one. And those defenses that was just so fun to watch. Like it's just such textbook across the board. Everybody doing their job for the team and making plays. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, no, that was, I'm glad we did. And the way we did that too, because I don't know if we're gonna be able to get to Willie or whatever, but I think we covered Willie pretty well there. Next week though, we got to do offense. We're due for offense.
We're going to offense. I'm
really
excited for next week.
I'm really excited. So I cut some of the clips today. So you kind of opened up Seymour, right? Talking about a guy who played his best games in the biggest moments. This guy had arguably the 2 best games of his career in the 2 biggest games of his career. I think that you can make a really strong argument for that. How much more of a hint do we want to give? There's one we could give that narrows it down significantly, but also makes it tough to tell.
All right, let's hold off on it.
We'll leave some nuggets on Twitter about who.
Yeah, we have Tuesday's show as well.
It's an offensive player who played big in big games.
There you go. That really narrows it down for the Patriots, right? Like
I'll tell people because I've seen people ask about Andre Tippett, Steve Krogan. Somebody wants us to do Babe Parilli. We can barely get video for Seymour.
Yeah,
like as much as the guy I'd really love to do this with is Stanley Morgan. Honestly, I think one of the most underappreciated players. Honestly, that whole 76 team, Russ Francis, I just don't think we're going to be able to do that. Yeah. So I will. They're all dynasty era players. But yeah, next week, offensive player Big plays in big games. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it took me a couple hours this morning, quite frankly, to find 5 clips that were
Right.
quality enough to use them on
And
the show.
the one for tomorrow took, and he played a little later, not a ton later, a little later.
Yeah.
Took me, I don't know. Well, because I kept watching highlights, so it took me longer than it should have. But
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it
Wes
up.
Welker's a good guess. Wes
It's
Welker is
pretty
a good
A
guess.
big play player, that a guy that played the best in big games, Wes Welker. No, I love
without
Wes
the
Welker.
hint. Without the hint, Wes Welker is a good guess. Now that I've given those hints, I don't think Wes Welker is as good of a guess.
Yeah. All right. Quick Boston sports minute before we wrap it up here.
Yeah, we had some NBA news break during the show.
Oh, what happened?
You saw that.
I didn't see it. What is it?
So, like the NBA offseason, I got to find it here. The NBA offseason is officially off and running. I got to find this tweet from Shams because I want to read it correctly. Basically, the Nets are nearly officially imploded.
Oh, great!
I
love
can't believe
that.
this isn't on my timeline anymore. Where did it go? Hang on here. There's the Patriots signing Bailey Zappi. All right, so here's this. I'll read the second half of it first, but I look for the first half. This is Woj. If Kyrie Irving can't agree to stay with Brooklyn, he has a list of teams he'd like them to consider on sign-in trades, including the Lakers, Clippers, Knicks, Heat, Mavs, and Sixers. None of those teams have the cap space to sign him without the Nets' help. Those are the teams Irving is interested in, but those teams aren't necessarily interested in him in return. Please, for the entertainment factor, put Kyrie Irving in Philadelphia. Oh my goodness. Need it.
Did anybody predict that the Nets thing was going to work? Like, did anybody think that was going to work? Like, on the floor.
Oh, wait, real quick. So hang on. Here's the other half of it. That's kind of the real Shams bomb that I couldn't find. Shams, quote, Kevin Durant is monitoring the Brooklyn Nets situation and will be considering options with his future. This now opens the path for Kyrie Irving to process finding new home. So Durant's not sold on Brooklyn, Kyrie or no. And StatMuse tweeted Kevin Durant in a Celtics jersey and everybody's going nuts.
So that's the thing that is the bigger thing in Brooklyn, right? Like, screw Kyrie. Like, whatever Kyrie wants to do is whatever. For Brooklyn, Kevin Durant wanting out is legitimate. Now, if I'm a Celtics fan, I'm not parading down Causeway thinking that he's coming to Boston. Where I would be concerned about him going is taking his talents to South Beach to join the Miami Heat. Because, Pat Riley's a big swinger, right? Like, that guy always gets his dude, it seems like, except when the Celtics got Gordon Hayward and he didn't. But that was Brad Stevens. This time around, I feel like Jimmy Butler could recruit Kevin Durant. I know there's been some rumors about Kyrie Irving going down there to Miami.
I think that's more likely.
So maybe it ends up being Kyrie, but it sounds like Miami is going to get one of the two net stars, right? Somebody from Brooklyn is going to be going down to Miami and joining Jimmy Butler in Miami. And that's a scary team for the Celtics.
No, it's not. Not if it's Kyrie. Kyrie Irving cannot play. Remember Jimmy Butler when he was in Minnesota, like, would yell at people and complain that his teammates didn't care enough, they weren't practicing hard enough. That's not making it. Well, and I love Jimmy Butler.
You don't think that Jimmy Butler can get it out of Kyrie for one season?
No, nobody can. Nobody can. If anybody could, Jimmy Butler would, in the league. Kevin Garnett is the anybody, if anybody.
Yeah.
But no, that will implode spectacularly. I don't think that team makes it through the year. I would be fine if Kyrie Irving, wherever Kyrie Irving goes, is not going to work. Send him to China. I don't care.
If I'm Miami, I say thanks, but no thanks to Kyrie. And
if I'm any team, I say thanks, but no thanks.
I try to go stealth and try to pry Durant. I think Durant's obviously the golden goose there, right? He's the prize. So if I'm Miami and I'm Pat Riley, I swing big and I try to get Durant.
But here's the other thing you need to remember. Durant is more or less going to pick where he goes.
Yeah.
Right.
But why not Miami?
Why not? No, that's fair. But remember, when it was the Warriors, the Celtics were the runner-up.
Yeah.
And obviously they were a different team the next time he became available. He's very close with Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
And you could if Durant puts his fist on the table and says,
okay, so let me ask you this, okay? Because clearly, if Durant's coming to Boston, and we're completely making this shit up right now, but if Durant's coming to Boston, it's to play with Tatum. So you're trading Jaylen Brown, right? Because you can't keep everybody. So
I think it's Rob.
So
I think it's
I guess
Rob,
in theory they could move Rob and Al Horford and try to.
Rob, Horford, Neesmith,
Yeah.
Grant, whatever kids and picks. And
Yeah.
then you're basically Tatum, Brown, Durant, Smart, and you round it out from there. And however you round it out from there,
Yeah.
that's the best. That's the best team in the NBA.
Mid-level exception players and minimum vet salaries from there.
Right.
Yeah.
You round it, and you don't get your precious true point guard, which by the way I think they need to. But
Thank you.
Smart, Brown, Tatum, Durant, mid-level center. Draft Coffee Coburn, honestly, to play with that team. I don't care. That's the best team in the NBA. So I think that's. And here's the thing. So people are saying they would want Brown or Tatum for Kevin Durant. This is the NBA-ification of it all. If Durant says, I want to go to Boston, like this happened with Harden last year, 2 years ago, whatever it was, when Harden wanted to go to Brooklyn, when Harden wanted to go to Philly. No, which way was it? No, Harden wanted to go to Brooklyn and Houston was going to trade him somewhere else. And he basically said, if you do that, I won't report. I'll hold out. I'll pay the fine. Durant can do that. At that point, the Nets have no leverage. So that's where you can swing. You basically just need to get it okayed by the league. That's where you swing Rob and picks and whatever, right? It's the same thing with Bradley Beal. If it's if Durant says I'll go to Boston or Miami, Miami's getting him, or you have to give up Jaylen Brown. That's what it is. But if he says, I love Jason Tatum's game, I love him as a player, I'm a friend of his, I want to play with him, and that's the end of the discussion, well, then Kevin Durant's going to play for the Celtics. And there's not a ton of bargaining the Nets can do in that. It's the same thing kind of we're talking about with Bradley Beal. That's why I think you can get Bradley Beal for cheap, because I think there's a chance that he's a guy who would say, he's not just going to demand a trade. He's going to say, I want to play in Boston. Period. Full stop. End of story.
So along with Tatum, Ime Udoka is on that Brooklyn staff, right?
Yep.
So you never know if Durant had any kind of positive relationship with Ime behind the scenes. That could also be a potential lure for Kevin Durant to Boston. I said this after the Celtics were bounced. I know everybody's coming at me about the true point guard thing. I think in a lot of ways, somebody mentioned this in the 17 million replies I got to that tweet. Somebody mentioned that saying true point guard to Celtics fans right now is a little bit like saying establish the run to football fans right now, right? Like that's like the off topic, off limits topic in the NBA world right now. There's no such thing as a Rondo point guard anymore. Like those guys don't exist. Bob Cousy wouldn't exist nowadays. Like that's like the thing. But with that being said, I really think that people are going to want to come play with this Celtics team.
Oh,
the Celtics team is young. They're loaded. They were 2 games away from the final, from winning the championship. If you're maybe it's not Kevin Durant, like maybe that's too big of a fish.
Yeah,
right?
I think Beal's more realistic.
Yeah, maybe it's Beal
or Colin Sexton,
or maybe it's just one of these other veteran type of players, like how the 08 team had James Posey and Eddie House and like all those guys off the bench that helped out. This Celtics team is going to become a destination to come play with this group, because all these veteran players are going to look at it and say, well, if they had me last year against the Warriors, they win a title. I'm the difference, right? Like I can get this team over the hump. I really think the Celtics are in that territory. And I just want to put this out there with my take on the true point guard thing. I don't know why Celtics fans are so angrily against trying to make the team better. Like, it seems to me like a lot of these people that are replying to me, Alex, just want to run it back because they were 2 wins away from a title. It doesn't work like that in sports. When you just run it back, you almost never get over the hump if you didn't get over the hump the first time. Like, you have to evolve. You have to make your team better. You have to add to your core. You can't just sit back and say, well, we were 2 wins away from the championship. We're not going to change a thing. We're just going to run it back. Like that doesn't work in sports. If you look across like all the teams that have come up a little short, the next year they always come back with another piece. There's always another good player. There's always a cog that was missing from the year before. The Celtics can't be complacent. They don't have to blow it up. They don't have to trade Marcus Smart or trade Jaylen Brown or trade Rob, but they have to continue to add to this core. They can't just bring back the same exact team that they had this year and expect to win the title. Like, it doesn't work like that in any sport, really.
Right. Yeah, no, I'd agree. Real quick, I get my pick for the draft tonight. If they stay at 52, Julian Champagny from St. John's, like a combo 2 through 4, 6'8", 215. He's one of those guys that's not great at any one thing, but he's pretty good at everything. 35% three-point shooter, 43% from the field, 2-time first team All Big East, 19.2 points per game last year. Like he feels like Grant or Shemi, or like he's that kind of player. And if Grant's, they might not be able to re-sign him, or he might be a guy they move here. So Julian Champagny, St. John's. That's my Celtics mock draft right there.
I like that. All right. Got to take in the chat here, Alex asking about the next Bruins head coach. You got to take on this?
No. At _Ty Anderson on Twitter, 985thesportshub.com. He's written a ton about it. I trust him on that more.
Yeah,
so
we can give Ty a shout out. That's fair. We'll give Marinovsky a shout out too. Those two guys. Of course, now I'm blanking on the name of the third guy.
Connor Ryan.
Connor, thank you. Yes, of course. How could I forget? Connor Ryan, Marinovsky, Ty, they have you covered on the Bruins. Should we say it about the Red Sox, Alex?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet. Too many cupcakes.
Nope, the season starts tomorrow.
Against the
season
Guardians.
Starts tomorrow. Yep.
All right. We won't say it yet about the Red Sox, but I'm about to say it. I at least think that they're
Evan, before you say it.
Yeah.
For the last month and a half, pretty much all but one of the teams they've played have been under 500. They've taken care of business against bad teams. They really don't have an impressive win on their resume in that span. Do you still want to say it?
I understand what you're saying. Like I said on Tuesday,
you're back in the picture.
They're back in the picture. That's what makes me excited, right?
They're back in the picture. You can't say that. You got to add that qualifier. They're back in the picture.
They're back in the picture. All right. Well, we'll talk maybe on Tuesday on the flip back the Patriots here as we wrap up the show. On Tuesday, we'll do another Q&A, and we'll take your questions about the Patriots here and now, not the throwback Patriots, although you can come in and ask throwback questions too, and I'm sure we'll oblige just the same. But on Tuesday, we'll have a Q&A for you guys. Next Thursday, we drop some hints. We'll drop some more hints on Tuesday about who we're going to do Throwback Thursday on. It's going to be an exciting one, a really fun one, a much easier one to find clips on and to really break down, I would say, than to interior defensive linemen. So this one will bite off a little bit more with it, and it'll be a bit more in-depth and more fun, I think, just to the type of player and the position that this player played is a little bit more exciting. But with that being said, I won't say it about the Red Sox, but we'll talk about this on Tuesday after the Guardians series. How about that?
Sounds good.
If they win it's a 3-game series, right? I'm assuming if they win 2 out of 3 against the Guardians in Cleveland, can we say it?
No, there's still too many division games left.
All right.
I don't know. Whatever his objective date is, just use that.
Driving a hard bargain. Okay. So we'll be back on Tuesday with the Q&A show, Thursday with the Throwback Thursday segment. And until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.